Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 108. Three Promises. Part 1. The Executive Branch's Emergency Arrest. According to Ways of Survival, an emergency arrest was only possible when a dakibi acted in a manner that severely violated the probability of a scenario. Intermediate dakibi, Paul. From now on, you will be led to the executive branch. You will remain silent about all scenarios and be deprived of all progress in the main scenarios. The expression of the intermediate dakibi Paul kept changing. You will lose the achievement points of all the scenarios you have built up and will be demoted to a low-grade dakibi after your punishment. Demoted? Wait a minute. The intermediate dakibi Paul hurriedly shouted. He made an unfair expression and looked at the dakibis around him. A sudden demotion? Shouldn't you tell me what I did well? Are you really asking because you don't know? Another dakibi of the executive branch asked. Paul hesitated for a moment at the dignified voice before continuing. I don't know. What the hell did I do wrong? He even had the audacity to move forward. Look at the constellations. Aren't they all happy? Didn't the scenario end brilliantly? The executive dakibi frowned at Paul's confident words. There is no problem with the probability. I used the scenario enforcement with the consent of the constellations and the constellation also. This is the problem with streamers. They sing songs of the constellations. Not all dakibis respected the constellations. It was because among the dakibis of the executive branch, there were some who had once been constellations. They were constellations, but they lost their characteristics and were forced to live as dakibis. They were the dakibis of the executive branch. Paul continued, despite his customers being insulted. Your words are going too far. Don't panic, Paul. You might be an enforce, but I can't tolerate insults to my customers. Paul rode the momentum and continued. I can guess why the executives came here. It is probably because I used the enforcement rights. The scenario enforcement can only be used when the majority of constellations support the probability of the scenario. I'm aware of that. Otherwise, there is the risk of a probability storm. But the constellation satisfaction is high. Satisfaction? Paul, look at yourself and tell me. Paul looked down at himself and he paled. This. The space around him was filled with blue sparks. It was the forerunner of a probability storm. Why am I receiving a probability storm? The probability storm was a punishment for going against the flow. The probability of the world now wanted to erase Paul's existence. The enforcer dakibis laughed. The enforcement right is a power that demands the greatest amount of probability from a dakibi. Did you think you would be safe using this authority for such a crude development? That isn't the case. Paul. You have a chance to end the scenario without using the executive rights. It was a fresh development I had never seen before. Why did you stop it? Thanks to your brutality, an emergency was dropped on Soldome's bureau. No, wait a minute. I exercised the enforcement rights according to the opinions of the constellations. Paul looked around. See constellations. Didn't you agree with my development? However, no constellations answered. Constellations? The numerous indirect messages from the constellations died out. Unbelievable. Why? All the constellations who supported his development had left the Korean channels. The executive frowned. You stupid fool. Can't you see that the constellations are gone? Many of the constellations who wanted to kill me and who instigated him had left the Korean peninsula in large numbers once it turned into a drama. It was natural. It was strange to keep watching when an unwanted development occurred. In fact, Baihyung's channel lost close to a third of its subscribers. The remaining ones were. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is looking at the intermediate dakibi Paul. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is chuckling at the intermediate dakibi Paul. The constellation secretive plotter is mocking the intermediate Dakibi Paul. They were all constellations who didn't agree with the intermediate Dakibi's development. And no, I can't be destroyed in this way. Executive. Don't worry. You won't be destroyed. What does this mean? A glimmer of hope appeared on Paul's face. The executive Dakibi said something that turned off the light completely. You will be given a worse punishment than destruction. Our bureau received a large probability debt because of you. The executives will use Dakibi Paul's redemption code. Then the body of the Dakibi Paul was forcibly pulled into the world. The intermediate Dakibi Paul trembled. His true voice emerged because he lost his broadcasting rights. This is a conspiracy. It can't be like this. Then Baihyung spoke from beside him. This is why you didn't want to finish the scenario quickly. Baihyung. In the end, Paul exploded. Paul held the redemption code and pointed at Baihyung. Executives. Arrest him as well. I have evidence that his channel broke the rules of the star stream. He will naturally come along as well. Paul's expression brightened. However, the people of Korea knew that people should listen to the Dakibi's words to the end. It is because he is the Dakibi who called us. What? Don't tell me? The executive Dakibi said. Yes, the Dakibi who reported you as Baihyung. Baihyung briefly waved towards the red-eyed Paul. The executive smiled coldly. Dakibi Baihyung. He is a very good Dakibi. Look at his humility. He has the integrity of a streamer who ignores everything and immerses himself in the scenarios. It is different from you and the Dakibis who only wear luxurious clothing. Baihyung had a shy expression on his face. He didn't know that his poverty would help him in this way. And no. That guy Baihyung is. Shut up. Paul screamed terribly from where he was tied to the redemption code. The executive Dakibi kept talking. You have been punished twice before. This is your third time. You are familiar with the third punishment, right? This is ridiculous. Do you think my superiors will allow this? You are making a mistake right now. If you touch me, I will listen to your bullshit after going to the bureau. A glowing portal appeared in the air. It was finally time to say goodbye to the intermediate Dakibi. Perhaps I wouldn't see him in the future scenarios anymore. Paul's eyes glared at me. A flame burned inside me the moment I met his eyes. The fourth wall is shaking due to your high emotions. The Shinyu Sun of the future had scattered into ash. She might have been saved if it wasn't for the intermediate Dakibi. She could never return to her time, but she might have been able to live in this new world. The intermediate Dakibi trampled on that last possibility. That was why I opened my mouth. Wait a minute. He might receive the death punishment, but I couldn't be satisfied. My words shocked my party members. Are you calling us? The Dakibis were surprised. They didn't expect an incarnation to stop the Dakibis of the executive branch. The executive Dakibi looked at me quietly and opened his mouth. That's right. You are the incarnation, Kim Dokja. Right? The other executive Dakibi laughed. Do you know this person? He is a famous incarnation in this area. He is one of the strongest incarnations on the peninsula, but he hasn't signed with a sponsor. How? I watched the leisurely Dakibis and spoke to Baihyung through the Dakibi communication. Baihyung. I'll give you 100,000 coins. What? Baihyung's eyes widened. Promote me to a platinum member of the Dakibi bag. No, why all of a sudden? Just do it. Shit. I looked at the executives and rushed Baihyung. Baihyung sighed and started to manipulate something in the air. 100,000 coins have been consumed. Congratulations. You have become a platinum member of the Dakibi bag. Originally, there would be splendid special effects for the promotion, but I asked Baihyung to omit it. Unlike the gold membership that could be obtained for 5,000 coins, the treatment of platinum members were different. Yes, Incarnation Kim Dokja. Why did you call us? The executives didn't know about my promotion and asked me again. These dakibis were really big and I was nervous facing them. They might have fallen, but some of them were originally great people. I breathed lightly and opened my mouth. I am requesting the dakibi solo meeting right. What? The executive dakibis were confused by my words. Then laughter soon emerged. Only platinum members can ask for the solo meeting right. Don't tell me? That's right. Please check it. The two dakibis looked at each other again. They manipulated the system to identify a few things and soon let out a cry of amazement. It is real. How can an incarnation become a platinum member? Aren't I qualified now? The executives hesitated for a moment before nodding. That's right. What do you want with the solo meeting right? The platinum qualifications allows you to meet with a senior dakibi. The appointment schedule. I don't want that. The dakibi I want is currently with you. I pointed a finger at the dakibi I wanted. I want a solo meeting with the intermediate dakibi Paul. Chapter 109. 3 Promises. Part 2. The two executive dakibis glanced at each other. How long did this last? Then the two dakibis burst out laughing at the same time. Kook. Kuhahahat. Interesting. Don't tell me. The smart executives seemed to have noticed something. Paul watched the scene with a puzzled expression. I will allow a solo meeting with the dakibi Paul. The free solo time is 20 minutes. The executives of the bureau agreed to my request like it was interesting. I figured they would do this. Originally, the executives didn't like streamers. They were closer to the subscribers than the streamers. The moment they spoke, a transparent dome formed around me and Paul. The original solo meeting right was a space for constellations and dakibis to secretly meet. The solo meeting with the intermediate dakibi Paul has begun. However, the usage could be changed according to the user. I saw Baihyun talking to the executives outside the dome. Paul was trapped with me and revealed his hostility. Why did you want to see me? Do you want to deal some medicine to those up there? His body was still affected by the executive dakibi's redemption code. As long as the code existed, Paul wouldn't be able to use his own power as well as the authority of a dakibi. In other words, the person in front of me was completely helpless. Don't bluff. I know your current situation. Paul winced and withdrew to the edge of the dome. Yet there was still a smile on his face. Haha, I see. I know what you are thinking. Do you want to get revenge for that slave? How funny. Don't you know it is a superficial human desire? Yes, you can try it once. I don't know how you found about the solo meeting rights, but this is a place where we can't hurt each other. No matter how hard you try. I ran to him and punched him as hard as I could. Blue blood emerged from his nose, and the person who couldn't grasp the situation screamed and belatedly collapsed. I told him, I can't kill you, but I can beat you to a pulp. Hyuk. You dare. Yes, now your true nature is emerging. I don't want to hear those disgusting honorifics. Heek, kuheek. Is this the first time you are feeling pain? You must have never been beaten up like this after living as a dakibi. Kekuhut. Kuhuhut. Paul was still smiling despite his blood dripping down. You made a mistake just now. There are special rules in place to prevent people like you from exploiting the solo meeting rights. Then the system message arrived like it had been waiting. You have injured the dakibi in the solo meeting space. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. These dakibi, they were really great. They prepared a penalty in case the constellations tried anything. It was a coins penalty. However, I was aware of the penalty and just shrugged. Paul laughed as he wiped off his blood. Foolish human. You are bringing destruction on yourself with your anger. Yes, try to hit me as many times as you like. The coins you have at the moment. How much coins do you think I have? Paul fell silent. Isn't it strange? How could I become a platinum member when I am an incarnation? I grinned at his shaky eyes. I have a lot of coins. I made a lot of money thanks to you. My fists descended towards the pale Paul. The damn scenarios I experienced so far passed through my head. Coins possessed, 205,902 I remembered Shin Yusung's dying appearance. These were among the things I told her. That Dakibi, I'll beat you to death. This was the first promise I would keep. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. Once again, my fist moved and his nose was broken. I didn't say that it was someone's share. In the first place, this couldn't be anyone's share. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. Quack. An insignificant human dares. Piak dash. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. Why you won't be safe if you do this to me. Piak dash. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. I'll kill you. I will surely kill you. Piak dash. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. Wait a minute. Wait. Stop. His frightened body curled up and I stopped my fists for the first time. For a moment, hope filled his eyes. Why yes. You thought well, there is nothing about doing this here. I watched him hurriedly speaking with honorifics and asked, did you stop? What? When Yusung asked you to stop, did you? I quietly looked down at him. He didn't say anything and just looked at the ground. Then he raised head and stared at the sky. He felt resentment for the ones who made him like this. This doesn't mean anything. Your dead companion won't come back to life. My dead colleagues wouldn't come back to life. He was right. It means something. However, I raised my fist to the trembling guy. So what if she is dead? Shin Yusung would have done this as well. Piak dash. Paul's fangs protruded as he rolled across the ground. Li Hyunsung would have done so as well. Yu Senga and Li Gilyung also. My fist slammed into his belly. Maybe, that bastard, Yu Jonghyuk. My companions outside the dome were looking this way. Shin Yusung was forming fists with red eyes. Li Jihai and Li Gilyung were shouting something. Li Hyunsung's eyes were red as he made a serious expression and Yu Senga was staring at me with wide eyes. Yu Jonghyuk was the last one I looked at before glancing back at Paul. I am outside the scenario. You can't earn coins by doing this. It won't benefit you. Coins? Yes, only the Dakibis would think like this. Some stories would become coins. Some stories wouldn't become coins. Maybe that is true. None of the constellations had made a bounty scenario, nor was there a sub-scenario. However, this behavior was meaningful. Nobody was making me do this. I'm not intending to get any benefits from this. What? Since the fall of the world, coins had become the principle behind every human's actions. They moved if the constellations gave coins, and didn't move if there were no coins. Still, humans often moved regardless of whether there were coins or not. You don't know it, but humans are animals that seek for the meaning of life through these things. What? Quook. I raised my fist and started beating him again. Piak dash. The subsequent punches crushed his face, ribs, and joints. I didn't have to control my power because there was no fear of him dying. One blow was the best blow. Every time bones broke, something exploded inside of me. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. In fact, I knew. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. I knew very well. No matter how hard I beat him up, it wouldn't give me any comfort over Shin Yusung's death. The dead Shin Yusung would never see this sight, yet I still moved my fists. I hit and hit him again. Piak dash. It was just like Yu Jonghyuk. He kept repeated his regressions until the last moment, even if no one knew his cause. 500 coins have been consumed as a penalty. Then the message of a constellation was heard. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is excited about the unseen development. 500 coins have been sponsored. I stopped punching for a moment and stared up at the sky. Even this was a story to the constellations. It isn't an act this time. You have returned the 500 sponsored coins to the constellation. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is very embarrassed. Think of it as a free service. Now things would be good for me. The constellation Secretive Plotter is interested in your actions. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is thrilled with your actions. I started punching again. There were only the sounds of the Dakibi's skin bursting and intermittent groaning. The constellation silently watched what I was doing. No one gave me any coins, but I could feel them watching me. Sometimes, this alone was sufficient. I was wrong. Spare me. Please. Please. Paul couldn't endure it anymore and dragged his body to the edge of the dome. The wall of the dome made a faint sound, but the executives didn't respond. Rather, they were pleased with my actions. Maybe they would be saying something like this. That coin-making bastard. Damn streamer scum. The executive Dakibis didn't like streamers. The executives who evolved from constellations were good at fighting but had no talent in leading the scenarios. Shortly after, Paul's body became completely ragged. I grabbed at his bloody neck. At this point, I asked what I really wanted to know. Where is Shin Yusung's soul right now? Dead souls that were part of the scenario couldn't escape from the confines of the contract, even in death. It would have been different if the contract itself had been destroyed. The intermediate Dakibi Paul opened his mouth after he was hit a few more times. That. I also don't know. You borrowed the power of an archangel and our contract was destroyed. Indeed, it was like this. The Dakibis had been handed the disaster Shin Yusung by a great demon. In the course of the transfer, the strings of the contract were created using the great demon's power. Then Oriel's hell flame's ignition had burned those strings. In other words, Shin Yusung's soul was now floating around the world. Why you? Absolutely, can't, regain, companion. Her soul, soon, the labyrinth, Paul finally collapsed. The Dakibi solo meeting rights has ended. The transparent dome disappeared and the executives whistled. Oh, you are in terrible shape even before the disciplinary hearing. They glanced at me before moving away with delighted smiles. I watched Baihyung hurriedly chase after them and asked, Did you get back the money? Of course. But didn't you use too many coins? I still have a lot left. I hit Paul exactly 124 times. Coins possessed, 143,902 C. Baihyung sighed as he glanced at me. I won't be able to communicate with you after entering the bureau. I will keep the channel open so don't get into trouble in the meantime. Please. I watched Baihyung and thought it was good. Without him, no one would argue with him from now on. The scenario error will delay further compensation settlement. The administrator of the main scenario had completely left the scene and the scenario development was likely to be stagnant for a bit. It should only be a day or two, but that was enough time. I looked up at the Dakibis disappearing into the portal and recalled the last conversation I had with Shin Yusung. Don't worry. You won't die. What do you mean? I can help you resurrect. I've resurrected twice, so it isn't as bad as you think. In fact, I tried to avoid using this method until the end. After all, according to the design, she must die once. There was also no guarantee that she could revive again. I don't know how long it will take. If you just wait and don't give up, I will surely revive you. If Shin Yusung's soul had fallen into the labyrinth of the world, it was almost impossible to revive her again. However, that wasn't necessarily the case. She would surely survive if I could regain her soul. The problem was how to find her soul. I suddenly looked back at Yusanga. Yusanga SSI. Yes. Shin Yusung's soul might enter a new world line, but in the all souls escaped from this world through the underworld. I remembered some constellations related to the afterlife. All of them were in a place I didn't dare touch or were beyond my reach. Still, there was one person that I could talk to. Can you call the abandoned lover of the labyrinth here? Yusenga hesitated for a moment before nodding. After a while, faint sparks appeared around her. It wasn't the previous method of directly descending due to the increased probability consumption, but it was certain that Ariadne nestled inside her. I opened my mouth. Olympus. I want to do business with you. The sparks bouncing around the area were rough. Well, our last encounter wasn't great. This time, I had to make concessions. I took a deep breath before getting to the point. Let me meet with the King of Hell. Now it was time to keep the second promise. Chapter 110. 3 Promises. Part 3. I could see Olympus's answer from Yusenga's expression. She became red and then paled. Based on Yusenga's eyes, I thought I was too hasty in bringing up the story. That. Dr. SSI. I wondered what she had heard to make her hesitate while watching me. I felt sorry for some reason. Can you tell me what the sponsor said? Sparks flew from Yusenga's body. Ariadne seemed to be running wild. I waited a bit until the situation calmed down. I hadn't realized the aftermath of the 3 questions and answers would be so large. The sparks soon subsided and Yusenga spoke in a mixed voice. The father of the rich knight isn't someone who can be easily met. The father of the rich knight. It was the modifier given to King Hades, one of the 3 head gods of Olympus. One of the 3 head gods of Olympus, he resided in a famous place that the 12 gods of Olympus couldn't enter. Hades was far too great for Ariadne to contact him. I quickly thanked her. Thank you, Yusenga SSI. By the way, Dr. SSI. The smart Yusenga probably already knew that the father of the rich knight was Hades. She had a vague idea of why I was looking for Hades. The story of Orpheus, who visited the underworld in order to revive his wife Eurydice, was a famous myth in South Korea. Is it possible? Yusenga wondered. As a rule, resurrecting the dead was impossible. I was subjected to the probability correction of the king of no-killing effect, but in most cases, there was no such correction. It was the same for Shin Yusung. If resurrection was possible, then Yu Jongyuk wouldn't have needed to regress. Yet if I could somehow obtain her soul. I can't tell you the details right now. I'm sorry. I didn't want to speak about my future plans in a situation where the constellations were staring at me. There were many constellations who disliked me due to the previous situation. I threw the bait and now I had to wait and see if they bit. The important thing was to be patient. I looked at the people around me and opened my mouth. Shall we organize things? Then my party members approached me one by one, as if they had been waiting. Shin Yusung and Li Gilyung were with Li Hyunsung, while Li Jihai stood in a distant place with a slightly sulky expression. I heard the voice of a low-grade Dakibi. I am the Dakibi Youngi, who will temporarily take charge of the compensation settlement. He was a newbie Dakibi and spoke in a slightly stiff voice. I will now settle the addition compensation for the 5th scenario. Perhaps all the higher-level Dakibis had disappeared. You have received the Elaine Forest's vital energy. People caught the small fruit that fell from the air. This is the most popular recovery item in the star stream. Even if you are seriously injured, you can recover quickly by eating this and sleeping. It was the first time I had seen such a polite Dakibi, and it gave me a feeling of resistance. Then Dakibi talked to me and some other people. Additional compensation for the key contributors will be given this evening. Thank you for all your hard work. I hope you cheer up in the following scenarios. The voice disappeared and I watched all the people holding the fruit. Characters I didn't know would be dead and some people would be dying right now. Still, we survived. The party members weren't sure to be grateful or sad. Once this happened, someone was bound to act as the representative. I stared at them and slowly opened my mouth. Everyone, you have suffered. The moment when nothing was decided only remained for a moment. Sadness was sadness, and happiness was happiness. If we made decisions, then at least these moments would remain meaningful. You really struggled. Relief slowly filled the party members' faces as I didn't say anything about rewards. They deserved it. Li Jihai was the one who spoke first. By the way, it was really shocking, Juicy. You looked cooler than Master for a moment? I acknowledge you. Then Li Hyunsung and Young Hee-won also opened their mouths. It was wonderful. I felt refreshed. These people, this was all they wanted to say to me? A wry smile appeared on my face as they started making a fuss. The biggest crisis of the beginning scenarios was over and Seoul was protected. For the time being, Seoul wouldn't be threatened until a few scenarios had passed. Dokja Sasai also suffered. Yusanga stared at me and smiled brightly. Maybe this was the reward given to me. There was the sound of something hitting me, and Shin Yusung placed her forehead against my side. Lee Gil-young was somewhat disgruntled, but he didn't say anything. I placed my hand lightly on Shin Yusung's head. Yes, this as well. In the evening, the additional compensation for the main contributors began. There were 3 main contributors who received additional compensation. They were me, Young Hee-won, and Yu Jong-hyuk. The additional compensation for the 5th scenario is a B-grade skill. Someone else might say that a B-grade skill as a reward wasn't right, but it was actually balanced. A low alphabet letter didn't mean the skill was useless. In addition, the scenario compensation was in the form of a free choice. In other words, I could choose the B-grade skill I wanted. There was a skill that was difficult to acquire among the B-grade skills, and I had to get it. Do you want to see the list of B-grade skills? It was a list with tens of thousands of skills. I was able to avoid a difficult choice because there was a skill I thought of from the beginning. Do you want to receive the B-grade skill lie detection as compensation? I nodded and there was a faint glow as additional messages appeared. The exclusive skill lie detection has been added to the skills list. I finally obtained it. It had been really frustrating not having lie detection. I looked back and saw that Young Hee-won was having a hard time picking something. I asked Lee Jihai, who was next to me. Hey, do you know where Yu Jong-hyuk is? He was going somewhere with Seolwa Uni. Lee Seolwa? Lee Jihai looked at me with pitying eyes, as if she knew what I was thinking. Sigh, it isn't what a Juicy thinks. Really? I watched the whole time. It is completely different from the two of you. I'm certain. I had a headache. Speaking of which, it was certain that they were lovers in the second regressions, but I couldn't remember in the third regression. Yu Jong-hyuk had a long road to walk. So where the hell did he go? Was it to pick up his younger sister? The 6th scenario will start in 3 days. A system message was heard. I think I knew what Yu Jong-hyuk wanted to do. The 6th scenario was when we finally encountered incarnations from other domes. He was a restless guy, so he probably went to get some hidden skills and items that he couldn't get in the last regression. There were still some hidden scenarios in Seoul Dome. It was a bit upsetting that they would be taken away by Yu Jong-hyuk, but it was better than he eating up skills. Moreover, he needed to be stronger than he was now, to make the rest of the scenarios easier. That's right. I have a message for a Juicy from Master. For me? Lee Jihai nodded as she grasped her sword and declared in a serious tone. Kim Dokja, the oath period is over. My heart sank. The oath of existence. I had forgotten about it. Then swear you won't hurt me until the 5th scenario is over. If you can't do that, I really won't help you. I swear. We had made this oath. That guy, surely he hadn't left me alive because of the oath? Then I remembered strange nonsense. I won't kill you. I will hit you once. I couldn't help gulping. Surely this wasn't his plan? Was he going to learn a skill to hit me? By the way, what oath did the two of you swear? Shut up. Yes, it would somehow be okay. Above all, I had the Beast King's sensitivity used by the disaster Shin Yu-sung. It was also level 3. I had Way of the Wind through bookmark, and there were also my strong companions. I met Li Jaihai's eyes as she said, "You know that I won't help you against Master, right? I wasn't expecting anything from you." Instead, I looked at Li Hyunsung. I was really impressed when he told Shin Yu-sung that he was part of my party, not Yu Jonghyuk's. Li Hyunsung gazed at me with perplexed eyes before opening his mouth. "That. Dokja Sasai." "Yes. To tell you the truth, I'm a bit scared of Yu Jonghyuk Sasai." "Ah, it's okay. I understand. Come to think of it, Li Hyunsung's strength was because of Yu Jonghyuk. Damn it." However, it was too early to be frustrated. I also had Young Hee-won. She was someone who didn't appear in the original novel, and I raised her with my own hands. Then Young Hee-won scratched her head and said, "I don't know what this is about, but I won't get involved in the fight between the two of you." "Huh? I won't disturb the two of you. What the hell is this?" The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is making a loving smile. I suddenly got a chill down my spine. What was that angel thinking? The constellation, Scribe of Heaven, is watching demon-like Judge of Fire with solemn eyes. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire has jumped and changed her expression. Dokja Sasai. I looked up with astonishment and saw Yusenga smiling calmly at me. "Don't worry. Jonghyuk Sasai isn't a bad person. I hope so. I'm sure that he is a good friend." I heard Yusenga's words and inwardly sighed. I didn't know why, but I thought of Han Soo-young at this time. Apart from me, she was the only one who knew what type of person Yu Jonghyuk was. Well, she wouldn't have protected me even if she was here. The scenario was over, but I didn't know what she was doing now. We finished organizing the surroundings and collected items. It became late in the night and Yu Jonghyuk still hadn't returned. Instead, Young Hee-won went to scout and returned with welcome things. I was amazed. "That is still remaining?" Young Hee-won had 6 bottles of beer and soju with her. She said with a smile, "Let's have a drink as a memorial." We set up a campfire and sat down. I quickly hit Li Jaihai's hand as she grabbed a beer. "You're a minor. There are no laws now. Why does it matter if I'm a minor? Drink cider with the kids." In the meantime, I took a quick swallow of the alcohol. Young Hee-won had red cheeks as she drank, while Li Hyunsung snored like a bear after drinking a few beers. He was weaker to alcohol than he looked. The mood. Li Jaihai secretly drank a few cups and collapsed with a red face. Surprisingly, Yusenga had already drank 4 bottles of soju. I couldn't see any signs of her being drunk. I'm a heavy drinker. Come to think of it, I had never seen Yusenga get drunk at a work party. It is hard to get drunk. There was sorrow in her words. The company had a few men who wanted to do something to Yusenga while she was drunk. Maybe this was the first time she could drink while at ease. Isn't it okay for today? Perhaps it was because she was paler than usual that I looked away with shame. There was a lonely moon in the sky and the cries of monsters couldn't be heard today. The other drinking groups around us were making loud noises. I wanted to drink well in this situation, but I also thought it was because of this situation that I had to drink. It was a world where everything couldn't be endured without drinking. Then small sparks appeared around my glass. The surprised Yusenga looked at me. I nodded. It was a good thing I hadn't drank too much alcohol. The alcohol poured down onto the ground. "The constellation god of wine and ecstasy wants to talk to you." Olympus had finally taken the bait. Chapter 112. 3 Promises. Part 4. The god of wine and ecstasy. The only person who used such a modifier was Dionysus, one of the 12 gods of Olympus. The constellation god of wine and ecstasy is humming. I couldn't hear the song, but I could see the drops of alcohol dancing to an unknown melody. The bubbles moved like they had life, forming numerous notes on the ground. The notes repeatedly moved between me and Yusenga. Yusenga looked at the notes carefully and opened her mouth. It is the puppy waltz. Can you read musical notes? A little bit. Yusenga cocked her head and continued speaking. Why did Chopin suddenly appear? I didn't have a clue. It was strange that Dionysus knew about Chopin in the first place. No. According to the original story, he was someone with great interest in the musical culture of later generations. It wasn't strange. The notes formed a circle and then arrows that pointed towards the remaining soju bottles. Yusenga wondered, is he telling us to drink more? Let's drink. There was no other way to interpret it. Yusenga SSI, drink only a little bit. At least one person should be sane. I needed someone to protect my teammates if I became drunk. I could wake up Lee Gil-young and Shin Yu-sung, who only drank cider, but I wanted to let them sleep well. Doc SSI can't drink well? I'm not a strong drinker. I lightly tapped my glass against hers and drank the soju. The alcohol entered my body and made me feel hot. However, the notes didn't stop. I think I should drink more. I drank a few glasses in succession. Heat rose from inside me, and I could feel the redness in my face. The movements of the musical notes became more active. No, did it look more active because I was drunk? Yusenga smiled. It is nice to drink with you. I was a bit lonely. Thus, I drank a few more cups. I felt a bit better as a mellow smell rose. I suddenly turned around and found that I was very close to Yusenga. I had obviously been quite far away. I was mistaken. The sound of breathing was harsh. I didn't know if it was my breathing or the breathing of Yusenga. Yusenga's shoulder lightly touched mine. Dr. SSI. Yes. It was clearly a face free of makeup, but it was hard to find any blemishes. Yusenga slowly leaned towards me. Her face was getting closer and closer. A pair of quarter notes and eighth notes danced intensely around us. My heart started to beat faster at the touch against my shoulders. Wait, something was strange. The exclusive skill fourth wall has offset some of the drunkenness. The message popped up and my mind cleared. Yes, this couldn't happen in reality. Yusenga wasn't such a person. It was only possible because this was ways of survival. I firmly held Yusenga's shoulder and urged her, Yusenga SSI, stay alert. Huh? The startled Yusenga blinked. Her face turned red for the first time. What did I? As expected, it wasn't Yusenga's will. I was in a slightly miserable mood as I opened my mouth and spoke towards the notes hovering on the ground. Stop playing and get straight to the point. The notes all stopped at the same time. It was a serene silence, like the midnight festival had suddenly stopped. The alcohol bubbles fell to the ground and sparks flew. Then the bubbles formed one string of words. You broke the excitement. I was a bit surprised by the letters written on the ground. A few words written in bubbles on the ground might not seem great, however it was extremely difficult for constellations to communicate with incarnations in ways of survival. It was why the constellations used the Dakibi channels to convey indirect messages. In the first place, spreading messages to Earth without the help of the Dakibis was only possible among the highest class constellations, and the consumption of probability was huge. The probability of the world was sensitive to language. I heard a faint cry from the great hall in the sky. The god of this world had noticed Dionysus' existence. The fact that he delivered a message directly without going through an incarnation meant he had confidence in his backer. As expected, the 12 gods of Olympus were different. I opened my mouth in a deliberate provocation. If you are so confident, then come and talk to me in person. Then the string of words moved. I don't like those with tentacles. It is annoying to fight. If I go down myself, everyone will die. In fact, I hadn't expected anything. Soul would be turned into powder if the 12 gods of Olympus really descended. My mother died that way because of my father. Yusenga saw this sentence and whispered to me. What does this mean? Maybe he is talking about the myth of his birth. As far as I knew, Dionysus' parents were Zeus and Princess Semele of Thebes. Hera was jealous of Zeus and Semele and disguised herself as Semele's nurse, encouraging Semele by saying the following. Zeus might be a fake. Ask him to show you what he really looks like when he is in Olympus. Semele was fooled and demanded that Zeus do this. Then she died from Zeus' brilliance. Yusenga listened to the story and cocked his head. Isn't it a bit different from the story I know? As far as I know, his mother isn't the princess of Thebes. I was a bit surprised by Yusenga's knowledge. I wondered if she had a level 1 degree in myths, not just Korean history. Of course, I didn't have such a degree. The string of words changed like it was amused. HRMM. You humans know me very well. As Yusenga said, Dionysus' birth myth was twofold. One was the version where Princess Semele of Thebes was his mother. The other version had Hades' wife, Persephone, as his mother. I asked Dionysus, I'm curious. Which of the two versions is real? Is it important? It is important. There is a reason I need it to be the latter. In fact, Yonghee-won's suggestion to drink was an attempt to lure Yonghee-won. Dionysus was the son of Persephone. If this myth was correct, Dionysus could probably contact Persephone, Hades' wife. Rude human. The string trembled. Still, I like rude humans. In fact, I already knew which myth it was. Dionysus' story was mentioned in ways of survival. There used to be a human as foolishly brave as you. He was someone who played the lyre very well. He didn't end up well. I'll be different. I can open up the entrance of the underworld. The father of the rich knight doesn't like me, but the goddess of the underworld will listen to me. However, it is very dangerous and there is no guarantee you will come back alive. It's okay. Good. I like eager people. I became nervous due to the excellent atmosphere. Dionysus was a constellation that I never knew what he was thinking. Keep this in mind. I can only give you 12 hours. If you don't come back in that time, then you can never return to the scenarios. I became dizzy and then suddenly felt drowsy. I realized what was going to happen. Damn, this was why he made me drink. I hurriedly spoke. Yusenga SSI, wake up the kids. Perhaps these were my last words. A new hidden scenario has arrived. The moment I closed my eyes, the drops of alcohol seemed to be laughing. I hope the father of the rich knight will listen to you. The constellation god of wine and ecstasy is guiding your soul. You are free from the physical restraints of your body. Many colors passed through my mind and it was like I was on drugs. There was a sharp pain from my forehead and then a faint voice was heard. Who is this? Interesting. The soul of an incarnation is walking in the world of the constellation? You will regret it. The voice spoke negative words. Perhaps it was someone from Olympus. The exclusive skill, fourth wall, is activated. The noisy voices disappeared like they had been muted. The soul of a living person has entered the underworld. The judges of the underworld have noticed your presence. Once I heard the last message, countless traces disappeared from my surroundings. The world turned around quickly and my body sank heavily. After a while, it felt like I had reached somewhere. It was hard to move, but I could guess what I would see when I opened my eyes. The air of the underworld was sticky. The sand at my fingertips were cold. Perhaps I was at the river of the underworld that Hades ruled. There was Acheron River flowing towards Hades' palace, and the underworld boatman Charon would be waiting for me. And, hey! Wake up! What are you doing here? Something dull hit my head, and it felt like oil was being poured on me. I took deep breaths as I sat up. Someone fumbled at my body, grabbing my neck and lifting me up. A newbie? I've never seen this face before. I had also never seen this face before. It was a man with a rough face and big muscles. The people in the surroundings were gazing at us. He looks fine? Check his body. He might have brought something with him. Hey, don't touch. If he fell here, then he must be a mess. Have you forgotten the crazy person who came a while ago? That crazy jerk was a bit special. Are people like him common? I let the people to talk among themselves and looked around. It was a spacious place where a hot heat could be felt. Judging by the infestation of ghosts, this seemed to be the underworld. Frames made of the metal of the underworld were all over the place, and there were also furnaces for smelting metals. It was a factory-like atmosphere. The dead spirits were enslaved in the underworld and making something. At first glance, it seemed like a giant robot. What was this place? Hey, are you ignoring me now? I ignored his words and slowly twisted his arm that was holding me. What? This strength. I couldn't waste time dealing with these small fries. I decided to check the hidden scenario that I had received. Plus. Hidden scenario, scenic walk, category, hidden. Difficulty, A+. Clear conditions, avoid the eyes of the judges and return safely to the ground. Time limit, 12 hours. Compensation, 10,000 coin. Failure, you will be forced to become a resident of the underworld. Plus. The scenario came out properly. The time that Dionysus said was accurate. Then why was I here? I should have fallen at Acheron River. This bastard. Daring to look down on us. The big man was just about to punch my head when I heard a voice from behind me. Over there, what's going on? Did something funny happen? You. Haha, let me in on it as well. Huh? I'm bored to death, because I've been working on the Gundam every day. Run away. Run away. The people surrounding me started to shrink back. It was like herbivores meeting a predator. I looked to the side where the voice came from. It was a young man with a slim body and bangs covering his forehead. The young man discovered me and moved towards me. He peered closely at me and muttered with an aghast expression. Why are you here? I couldn't understand his words for a moment. This person knew me? What? You can't recognize me? Have you really forgotten? The young man lifted his bangs and I recognized him. Damn it. Come to think of it, the underworld was a place where the dead came. I hadn't even thought about it. Of course the person I killed here would come after dying. Ah, don't be so vigilant. Aren't we both dead? The curious young man's eyes came closer. There was a mean and cruel look in them. I only saw him for a short time, but it was an unforgettable impression. The man smiled. Yes, who the hell killed you? Please open your mouth. Huh? The person who died in the first scenario, delusional demon Kim Namwon, was in Hades' domain.